Hey guys, it's Melissa and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Melissa Ellen and I do these true crime videos. My intention is to help you guys get involved. I want to bring awareness to help bring justice to unsolved cases, missing persons, everything along those lines. And I want to give you enough about the victim's story that you're encouraged to share it, to get involved. So I always have links down below of different ways that you can get involved with each person's case, as well all of my sources. So if you want to read further, if you want to look into anything, like 99% of the time they're there. Sometimes I forget, but all my sources are linked down below. Everything I talk about is publicly sourced from articles, videos, and everything that you'll see below. In this case, I did end up talking with Molly Miller's aunt, Paula, chatted with her a little bit just to verify the accuracy of the public information that is out there and let her know that I would be doing this video for them. So today I'm going to tell you guys the story of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, who went missing in 2013 from Oklahoma. It is a crazy story involving a police chase, 911 phone calls, and then complete absolute lack of information. It's so mysterious, and I just have to share this with you guys, and everything will be linked for you guys. Thank you to everyone who's new. I appreciate you guys, and let's jump right into the video. Okay, first of all, before we jump into this video, I want to give you guys two things. Number one, a case we covered a long time ago, a little baby by the name of Evelyn Boswell. I'm sure you guys remember this case. It was all over the news. All right, we already knew that the mom was responsible. She was in jail for a falsified police report of her daughter being kidnapped or taken, a mess. And then it was not clear who else was involved, possibly her mother, mother's boyfriend, other people involved. The police have issued a statement saying that they have actually charged the mother, Megan Boswell, with the murder of her child, Evelyn Boswell. And they have stated that they do not believe that anyone else was involved in that case. So I wanted to give you guys that update. You guys have asked me a lot about what's going on with it. It was stalled for a while. And I don't know if it was because of the current situations with the courts, but it was just kind of sitting there, and we did just get this update. The second thing, I hope I can insert the video right here. If not, I'll link it for you guys down below. I just did a video a month ago on the Golden State Killer. And one of the things I was talking about in that video was that I could not believe the amount of people that felt bad for this man. He was a serial killer in the 1970s. 13 people, okay? As well as 50 sexual assaults, at least, plus burglaries. Like, this man was horrible. He had 3 different names. Anyways, I won't go there too much. I'll link the video for you guys. And one of the things that happened is when he was finally arrested, because it took like 40 years, he appeared in court like he was just this like sickly elderly man. Like, he just, and people felt bad for him. They're like, leave that old man alone. I literally remember the comment when I read it, and I'm like, leave him alone? No, he's a serial killer. And people felt bad for him. And the detective who had originally handled the case was like, do not feel bad for him. That man is manipulative. He was on riding his motorcycle the week before. Anyways, people were like still commenting and telling the cops that they were being too hard on him. They were writing into the courthouse saying that they couldn't believe that they were putting this man through it. Anyways, the jail just released a video of this man literally climbing around his jail cell, like climbing up onto stuff. I will link the video for you guys of Joseph D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer. Yeah, you just have to see it because it was way too interesting. All right, let's go ahead and tell you guys. I can already tell I've had too much coffee. I'm like, and you guys already tell me I talk fast, so let's do this. So Molly Miller was 17 years old when she disappeared July 8th of 2013 from Wilson, Oklahoma. She was with her friend by the name of Colt Haynes, who was 21 years old. What I could find out about Molly, there was some interviews that were done by her mother, Melissa, her aunt, Paula, and as well as some information on the Charley Project. She was really into sports. She loved softball. She dreamed of being a nurse. The one thing I heard from a lot of her friends and family is that she was a very loyal person, that she was a fighter, that she would stand up for her friends, that she was that kind of girl. She was a good friend and a good person. And I think this is why I get really passionate about these cases and I want to share them, because what bothers me the most is when somebody's story cuts off. And it cuts off at just the worst time, okay? She was a 17-year-old girl who wasn't making good choices at all. We talk about this a lot in a lot of my videos because I just care about these people and I hate when their story ends here. she was getting in trouble. She was experimenting. She wasn't coming home. She had ran away in the past. She was getting in trouble. And a couple months prior, I think it was November of the year prior, her mom had even talked to her Aunt Paula and was considering having Molly go and stay with her for a while. You know, one of those situations where it's like, go stay with your aunt. Maybe you'll listen to her for a minute. Like, stop. And Molly had a whole life ahead of her, and she was going to be a great person. And I hate that her story ended where it did, because she got treated like she was, oh, she's just a runaway. Oh, she got in trouble. She was out doing bad stuff. That's what you get. No, that's not what you get. And I hate that we don't have more for her, and that she's not here, and that she's not there to live the rest of her life. Yeah. Now, Colt was 21, and I don't have as much information about Colt, and what I did know is that he was not in a good space. He was not making good choices, again, at the same time. He was involved in drugs. In fact, after his disappearance, he was charged. He had a warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear or failure to pay in regards to a drug charge. Again, you end his story at like the worst time. He had just had a son. I believe his son was about 8 to 9 months old at the time. And we're going to talk about his mom and how this kind of links in. But yeah, he had a whole life ahead of him. And instead, this is where his story ends, as being the guy that was involved in drugs, hanging out with a 17-year-old who disappears. And then the rumors are that they ran away. It's just not a good way to have somebody's story be told. So I mentioned that Colt had recently had a son. So let me back up a little bit. His son was born in October of 2012. He started dating the mother, Katie, in January of 2012. Katie had just broke up. So yeah, like they literally started dating. She got pregnant. They had a son. They dated for a minute. They are not together anymore. She's not really talking to him at the time that he disappeared, because she heard that he had gotten more heavily involved in drugs. Okay, now Katie had a boyfriend prior. She had just broke up with him before she got with Colt. That boyfriend's name was James Con Nipp, and he goes by Conn. So we're going to refer to him as Conn. Yes, Conn, like convict, but like Conn, okay? So Conn and Katie had broke up, and now she was dating Colt, and they had a child together. On the day that Molly and Colt disappear, they're with Conn. Yeah, you're kind of wondering, what? Yeah, the thing is that immediately people are thinking, why are those two hanging out together? Like, don't they hate each other, since that's his ex and she's now with him? And yes, according to Katie, Colt hated Conn. Conn was horrible to Katie. They had dated for a couple years, and it's reported, according to her, that he was physically abusive with her at times. And according to her, Colt hated Conn as a result of this. So the question is, why were they all together that day? And it's rumors. We don't really know for sure, but piecing together what people did know about their current lifestyle, Molly was getting in trouble for hanging out on Long Hollow Road. Long Hollow Road is where Conn lives. Now, Conn's family has property out there, and there's a whole shit show of stuff that we're going to talk about involving them and drugs and law enforcement and things that go on out there. But when Molly was getting in trouble, it was for hanging out on Long Hollow Road, because there's drugs involved. So the theory is Colt had come upon some drugs that he wanted to sell. He didn't have anyone to sell them to, so the theory is that he was meeting up with Conn to facilitate the selling of these drugs, okay? It is reported that they picked up Molly that morning. I'm not sure how Molly gets mixed into this. Molly's known Conn, I don't know for how long, like she's actually known him, but like the Nipp family, so Conn's family out on Long Hollow Road, the Nipp family, and the Miller family, which is Molly's family, they all know each other, like from school and growing up and in town. So they've all kind of know each other. And in fact, the family said that they trusted Molly with Conn. Not that Conn was a good person or anything, but that he cared about her, and they did not ever, they still can't wrap their mind around the idea of Conn actually hurting Molly. She was Molly. She was 17. She's a little girl. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to them still. So they pick up Molly that morning, and then Molly ends up getting dropped off. According to Paula, she's not 100% sure, but she thinks that she ends up going to like a Conn's family member's house, whatever. She's hanging out with someone during the day, and then she ends up getting picked up. We don't know what they're doing, because Conn won't ever clearly even admit, other than in court, we'll talk about that in a minute, that they were together. But we know they were because their cell phones were pinging together on the corner of Wilson and Ardmore. They were together. Okay, so at 10:30 that night, they're at a gas station. Conn is driving, and he's driving a 2012 Honda Accord that belongs to his girlfriend. He's driving the car. Colt is in the front seat. Molly's in the back seat. Conn decides that he would like to spin his tires and start being, having fun and causing a ruckus, and starts kicking up rocks. Okay, that's rude on one hand, but he's kicking the rocks all over a Wilson City police officer's car. Yeah, like, just because who does this? Like, ballsy as can be. But yeah, he starts spinning his tires and starts kicking rocks all over the police cruiser. So what happens from there? They end up in a high-speed chase. Now, when I originally watched and was doing some research, I thought that like it only went on for a minute and then it got called off and that was it. No, this went on for a while. They got up to speeds up to 120 miles per hour. Officers tried to put out stop sticks, but Conn was getting past them. At one point in time, an officer was driving down the road trying to cut, find out where he was. And Conn came at the officer and the officer had to dip into a ravine in order to not be hit. This was a real chase. And for some reason, it's a little not clear, they end up calling off the chase. Now, it appears that they lost them and then they did continue to cruise around the area trying to find him. But here's what's interesting. So when this happened in Wilson, this is going to be Carter County Sheriff's Department. Once they kept going, they end up in Love County. So, of course, when they're crossing jurisdictions, they contact the next jurisdiction, let them know that they're coming into their area and that they have a high-speed chase. The sheriff of Love County, Joe Russell, makes a comment that says, go ahead and barricade off a Long Hollow Road. That's where he usually goes. Who's he? Oh, that's right. He already knew that it was Conn driving the car because this is what Conn does. Oh, and by the way, Conn is his cousin. Yeah. And it is reported that, okay, so this kind of made a little bit more sense to me, thinking. It is reported that the sheriff made the comment at some point in time to stop the chase because he didn't want another one of his cruisers destroyed. Conn has done this before. The officers have chased him before. What Conn would do is he would drive out into just back roads, but not roads, like dirt and rocks and hills, and he would just boom, boom, boom. He's just a freaking dumb kid. They don't wow. And so he's driving and he would go into these areas and he would just kick up rocks and dirt to the point that the officers would have to back off. They would get dusted out. They couldn't keep up. And then they would risk running into stuff because now they can't see what's in front of him, but Conn can because he's dipping and causing all this problem. So when Conn's car ends up found later on, I'll tell you guys about that in a minute, but when they find the car, there's $18,000 worth of damage to this car just in the undercarriage. So where he's driving is not roads. He's driving up on stuff and causing severe damage. So I thought okay, well, if you know who the person is, back off so that you don't destroy property and you don't risk the officer, and then they'll go arrest him. But they didn't. So why did you call the chase off if you weren't going to go arrest? It's all confusing. But what we do know is that there were officers that did continue to look and they were unable to locate them because Conn knew the area. Where he ended up driving and ditching out into and the car gets stuck is literally yards from his property line. He knew what he was doing. He knew this area. He knew he could drive through there and dust them and leave them and get away with it. He had done it before and he attempted to do it again. That's how he ends up getting caught. It's a whole story. We're going to get to that in a minute. Now, the chase ended around 11 to 11:30. The next activity that is confirmed is that Molly uses her phone a little after midnight. Let's clear this up because you're going to have a lot of questions. Molly did have an iPhone, but she did not have it with her at the time. She had been grounded from it, and so she had, it appeared, went and purchased a track phone. So the phones they have do not have navigation on them. This is 2013. That was an option, but they didn't have this on their phone at the time. They were running on track phones because you're going to want to know why in the world did they not ping themselves to get help. Molly ends up phoning 911 at about 12:57. It's a 5-second call, and the only thing the dispatcher can hear is her pushing buttons. And the dispatcher tries to call back. The phone's not answered. Molly continued to call 911 as well as friends. the timeline's all kind of muddy. The family had to actually get these records, the phone records, on their own. And when they got Colt's phone records, they had to convert them. Like, it's a little bit of muddy. So let me just give you an idea of what happened. Molly and Colt are mostly using Molly's phone, and they are calling friends. Molly ends up getting a hold of a couple of different friends and is expressing to them that she was in a high-speed chase with Conn, and that Conn had left, and that her and Colt were together and they didn't know where they were. Molly told a friend she thought she was on Bear Hollow Road, I believe is what I heard. And the friend went to Bear Hollow Road trying to find her. But the friend could not find her. Went and just searched and searched and searched. And it ended up, the reason the friend couldn't find her is because he was 10 miles away. And for some reason, I think I know why, Colt ended up getting really aggravated, and I'll explain that a little bit more when I talk about his phone calls. But for some reason, this friend ends up giving up at a certain time because he can't find her because he's so far from her. She ended up calling a couple other friends. They didn't answer. And then she calls another friend who would have probably gone, but he said he had to go to work and he had no idea what she was saying, that she was just sobbing uncontrollably and he couldn't help her and he didn't know what was going on and he didn't do anything about it. I'm just really not trying to put blame on people at all. I do not ever want to do that. I don't understand. Maybe it's just different. Like if my friend called me crying, I'm going to find my friend. But I'm also not 17 anymore, hanging out with a bad crowd where maybe we don't want to rat on each other. And I don't know if that's why they didn't phone the police, phone her family, why they didn't do more. Colt ends up getting hold of a couple of different people. He gets a hold of 4 of his friends. They end up, one friend goes out and like tries to find them. He can't find them. And another 4 friends end up going out. They actually went and they searched and searched and searched and searched. They're on the phone with Colt. They're talking to him. Colt tells them that they need water. They need water. They've been out there for hours. They need water. They're lost. They don't know where they're at. And on top of that, Colt tells the friends that he had climbed up into a tree. He climbed up in the tree either to see where they were, because it's dark at this time, or to get better cell phone service. Because again, he's mostly using Molly's phone. It doesn't seem that Colt's phone was working as well. So he said he climbed up into this tree and he fell. He fell out of this tree and it broke his ankle to the point that the bone was showing and he needed help. Then these friends are just searching and searching and searching. These friends end up going to Conn's house because Conn, where are they? They were with you. And Conn's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Colt's on the phone with the friends and he's like, let me talk to Conn. Like, let me talk to him. That man knows where I'm at. Conn ends up talking to Colt. This is reported by the friends. Ends up talking to Colt on the phone. And he tells them something. And Conn ends up handing the phone back to the friend. Well, he tells this friend. This friend had happened to have been in one of these chases in the past with Conn, because he does this all the time. And Conn tells this friend, remember where we, parked the Mustang the last time we went in one of these chases? And the friend's like, yeah. And he's like, that's where they are. They're out in that same area. That's where I parked the car. They're out there. So the friends take off. Now, the interesting thing is according to the friends, they asked, they're like, hey, can we just walk across your property since it's closer? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like how much closer this is to his property? And Conn tells them no. Drive around. Okay, so they end up driving around. 2 things happen. They stop at one location and they got kind of spooked off. They thought that somebody was following them. They thought they saw a 4-wheeler or a horse or something like that. And they're getting kind of freaked out about being out there. But on top of that, it's now daylight and Colt is on the other end of the line. He's injured. He needs water. And there's a very big possibility that they had been using drugs that night. And either he's still high or he was coming off. But Colt is not being nice at all to them on the phone. It is reported that he was yelling, he was calling Molly names, he was calling them names, and he was just being totally irate and not being kind to them, to the point that they finally were like, you know what, if that's how you're going to be, find yourself. Like, get your own way home. It's rude and it's horrible, but the friends didn't think that they were like that injured or never going to be found again. They just thought like, okay, fine, you're being a butt and I don't want to come find you because you're annoying me. So like, find your own ride home. I don't think they knew what this was going to happen, that they would never be seen again. It is reported that another friend tried to pay another friend to take them back, and like they did argue about it, and it wasn't an easy decision, but that Colt was just not being agreeable, and they got tired of searching for him because he wouldn't give them directions. It should be known that Molly didn't know where she was at, okay? She's 17. She didn't know the area that well, and friends said that Colt was notorious for not knowing directions, that he was always lost, even in a city that he lived in, that he could never give good directions. So there was a lot of frustration that was happening at this time, and the friends decided not to do anything, and they went home. Molly and Colt's phones both cut off within minutes of each other. Both phones. I don't know how often two phones die at the exact same time within minutes of each other. I mean, it makes you wonder, did somebody turn them off? Because yes, both of their phones ended a little after 9 o'clock in the morning, and that was it. They have never been seen. Their phones have never communicated again. Their phones have never been found, and there is literally like zero trace of them. They have never been found. Throughout the night, Colt and Molly, not only were they contacting other friends, but they were attempting to contact Conn. I'm just not sure if they actually got through to him. So now, what do we have? We know that around 9:30 in the morning, their phones cut off. We know that right before that, Conn was at his property because he was seen by the friends. I don't know if that was like an hour or two before, but we do know that like he was at his property and they were still alive and they were on their phones. What happened? Their phones actually died 8 minutes apart, and it was 10 a.m. when Molly's last call was made. And when her last call was made, it pinged on a hill. Not too far from where the car was found, because the car was actually found 2 weeks later, and not too far from the Nipp family property. Molly's family ends up contacting the sheriff's department, ends up contacting them. They're really confused what's going on because they start getting secondhand information that Molly was involved in a high-speed chase, and then they can't get a hold of Molly. The information that I just gave you, by the way, took them a very, very long time to get this information. They were very confused. At first, Molly's mom, Melissa, wasn't sure. Did Molly take off? Did she run away? She had run away in the past, but not in these circumstances, and only for a couple of days. This is very different and absolutely not within Molly's normal means for her to take off for an extended period of time. On top of that, she might have had a little crush on Colt, but she did not know him. And for them to like plan an entire runaway scheme after that night, like it's just insanity. Because one of the rumors is that that's exactly what happened, that Molly got picked up and they went off to go, and they just ran away and they're off living their best life. No. There were also theories about what could have happened with Molly, and maybe something happened to Colt and they got rid of Molly. Like it's really confusing. But what we do know is that when Molly's family tried to file a report with the Love County Sheriff, Joe Russell, who is the cousin of Conn, when they tried to file a police report saying like, hey, Molly and Colt are missing after that chase with your cousin, can you help us find him? He flat out refused to take the report. The dispatcher tried to patch them over to the sheriff to talk to him about their missing child, and he flat out refused to take the report, didn't even take their phone call. In fact, the dispatcher ended up making the missing persons and posting it. 2 weeks later, okay, Molly's family is like, we've had enough. We are going searching. Like, we're going to go out there and find her. They end up heading out there to put together a search party, and they're trying to be quiet because they've obviously figured out that nobody's cooperating with them. And they end up out there, and a sheriff's deputy comes across them. That sheriff's deputy ends up talking to them. He did not even know that there were 2 missing people in his county. Like, that's how crazy this is and how little they were taking this seriously. He didn't even know they were missing. Anyways, that sheriff's deputy ends up helping them. He ends up going and he goes to search the area, and he actually finds the car. The car has been missing this entire time. The car belongs to Conn's girlfriend, Sabrina. She decides to report it stolen. And then she gets in trouble later for an insurance claim because she reported it stolen. Then they find it and there's all the damage, but it wasn't stolen. You let your boyfriend drive it, and he purposely went on a police chase. He caused purposeful damage, which is not covered by most insurance policies. So again, she did get in trouble for filing a false insurance claim. So The car is found and it's parked on this area. They end up pulling in the car. It's a little questionable how much research they did on the car. Did they do a lot of forensics? Don't really know. No, it doesn't seem that they did. There's never really been a good inventory of the car. They just assessed all of the damage and kind of wrote it off like, yeah, they got a police chase, and then they all bailed out of the car, and that's it. It was really interesting. The car wasn't found until July 22nd, and they went missing on July 8th. And when the car was found, it had obviously crashed through a gate down Long Hollow Road. So they drove till that road ended and then crashed through the gate and kept going. That damage to the gate was never even reported. So, like, how seriously did they take this investigation? You had someone who went on a serious police chase and you didn't even finish investigating. And then you found out that 2 people went missing and you still didn't go out and investigate. Like, they didn't even investigate this broken gate. As soon as you found the gate, you keep going, you find the car. So just other things that were just missed along the way because they didn't care. Because the sheriff didn't care. I can talk about what a piece of crap he was because, believe me, he ended up getting arrested for all kinds of charges. Now, he had a son who was staying with him, and this son was reportedly, as well as Conn, but the son mostly, was living with him, selling drugs out of his house, using his police cruiser to go sell these drugs. The charges against the sheriff were insane. I'll link down the whole list for you guys down below, like minors. Just it was a whole mess of what he was letting go on inside of his house while he was the sheriff. So it's no wonder why his cousin Conn thought he could get away with anything, because he was. And in July of 2016, he was arrested and he resigned. He did try to go back and become like a process server, and even the judge said, no, you're done. You don't work for us anymore. He has only given one small interview that I saw in some of the interviews, and it basically was like, yeah, I try to help, but every time I do, they accuse me of, something, and so whatever. And then there was another time when a journalist tried to go up to him and he literally said, I don't care about that effing family. Yeah, not a good person. And his official charges were neglect of duty, maladministration, and also accused him involving the case of Molly and Colt, that he let Conn be alone in the evidence room with evidence from this case, completely unbeing watched. Unbeing watched? Unattended. But in March of 2017, the sheriff did take a plea deal. He got like 1 year probation and some court cost. Not enough for the fact that he hindered this case and the fact that Molly and Colt were not found because he didn't do anything about it. Before we go into theories, let me give you what happened with Conn, okay? So Conn nothing has ever happened in regards to Molly and Colt. They're literally just missing. Conn eventually tried to pull another high-speed chase, and he ended up getting arrested, and he ended up being charged for the high-speed chase with Molly and Colt. And in fact, he was charged with harm, like putting someone at harms during a high-speed chase, because Molly and Colt were in the car. He admitted in court that they were in the car. He was sentenced to 10 years and he served 4 years, and he actually got out in 2018. So he's out right now. He's never been charged with actually whatever happened to them. He's never given a statement on what happened to them. All we know is that he admits that they were in the car and that they all took off. There were a couple other things, because I too am sitting here thinking, why? Why, if they had all gotten out of the car, Conn made it back home, Colt and Molly are out there, why would Conn go out there and harm them? There's a couple of things that could have happened, but I'll tell you why people think that something had to have happened. Conn had to have gone and done something to them, because I think it was 2 weeks after, Conn's sister actually went to a neighboring police department and wrote a statement and said that Conn had actually told her that he was going to be arrested for murder. It is reported that they looked into it, but that it's not concrete information, it's not hard evidence, and there's nothing they can do with it. It is also reported that the family ended up hiring a private investigator. We've talked about him before, Philip Klein. And Klein Investigations actually ended up in contact with someone, I don't know who, somebody, and that person gave them a gun and a machete that supposedly came from Conn's mother, who gave it to this person and said that on the night of the disappearance that Conn gave her this gun and machete and told her to hold on to it Actually, I think he gave her the gun that night and the machete was a different time. But anyways, when he gave her the gun specifically, he said, hold on to this. It's going to exonerate me one day. Okay, so you're like, wait, so then that means he didn't do it. Another really crazy thing happened. About 8 months after, it was March 29th of 2014. Police receive a 911 phone call. And this phone call appears to be coming from an area called Moxley Pond. Now, when the dispatcher says it, so we're clear, she doesn't say Moxley Pond. She says a pond off of Oswald. I looked on the map. Oswald is a massively long road, okay? She says she hears them talking about a pond off of Oswald. So there's this 911 call that comes in. It ends up that it is Conn's uncle, a man by the name of Colby. This 911 call is absolutely so hard to hear. Like, you cannot understand what is being said. You have to listen to it very closely, very slowly, and really listen. The person appears to have called 911 on accident, and the phone is obviously like in their pocket or something. It's Colby, and he's talking to someone. You hear water running, and he says something about Molly Miller, something about a gun, something about shooting him, and something about a hole. I'll try to include the call if I can for you guys, but just understand it is really hard to hear. I still can't make it out. But the dispatcher is on the phone and is like, hello, 911. And then she realizes that someone's talking. She doesn't say another word because she's intrigued. She is listening and she hears and she can hear what they're saying. And she hears something about Molly Miller, something about Colt, like she feels like she knows what they're talking about, but she just can't quite make it all out. So the 911 call ends up ending and the dispatcher immediately calls Sheriff Joe Russell. You know, Conn's cousin again. Anyway, she calls him and she's like, hey, I just got this 911 call. I don't think they knew that they called 911. And they were talking about Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. Like, they're talking about it. And they're talking about something about that, a pond off of Oswald. The sheriff says, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I'm going to look into that. They said Moxley Pond? And she's like, yeah, okay, yeah. Kind of interesting that the sheriff knew Moxley Pond because Moxley Pond is the pond that's by the, like, how did you know that pond? And that pond gets mentioned a lot. They have said that that pond needs to be looked at. And as far as I know, to this day, that pond has still not been searched. They have searched-ish around the areas, but they have not drugged that pond still. And just makes you wonder. Like, I hate this. Like, there's a pond. Go look. There could be two people in there. Like, go get them. And I just hate that I feel like it's been all these years. Why has this pond? Like, what do you need? You don't need a search warrant. It's a freaking pond. Go. There's people in there, possibly. Like, get them out. I don't understand how this works. And I know that everything's expensive, but like, we've got nonprofits that do this. We've got these search organizations. Like, do it, find it, work with them. There would be enough people that would be willing to donate the money to go dig that pond. But as far as I know, it still hasn't been done. Now, Klein Investigations did help set up some searches of the area. They went out to the area where, remember when Colt had fallen from the tree? They actually found that location. And the sniffer dogs actually picked up on several spots for human remains. And they searched, they did not find anything. But it was reported that a year after they went missing, there was actually a fire at that exact location, which is literally yards from the fence line of Conn Nipp's family property where he lives. And they didn't find anything. They did not find them. They didn't find any evidence, but the sniffer dogs did pick up, and that is exactly where he had fallen. And it's the same location where Molly and Colt's phones stopped pinging from. So the question is, we know that at the time that the friends stopped looking, we know that Colt was in an irate state. We don't know what part of that was involving drugs. We don't know how much of that was just from them being dehydrated and lost and confused and upset. But we do know that Colt was in an irate state. And we know that Molly was in just crying and sobbing and upset and lost and confused, dehydrated as well, and possibly under the influence as well. And we know that people are starting to come back to Conn to ask, like, where are they? So what I wonder is, did Conn go back to look for them and something happened at that point? Was there an argument with Colt and Conn, and did something happen and then something happened to Molly because she witnessed it? Did Colt and Molly make it back to Conn's and then something happened there? Did somebody else come across them, which is just so random? Like, I know that random occurrences happen, but like, do y'all know of a story yet where somebody just happened to be in the middle of a field when they were lost, waiting for rescue, and instead they got kidnapped? Like, it just doesn't seem likely. Did they get a hold of someone else? But then we would have phone records to show evidence of them getting a hold of someone else. And then there's the theory that they ran away together. Well, like, we don't really believe that, right? First of all, if you have two people that barely know each other and they're in a drug state and then they decide to run away, chances are that they're going to continue in that drug state and they're going to have an interaction with law. Like, all these possibilities of things for them to have been gone all this long and they just ran away together after a week just doesn't seem to fit. So the only logical explanation is that something happened to them there and then they were taken from there and they were put somewhere else. The Nipp family property has never really been searched. There's a little bit of argument I saw between people on Facebook saying, yes, it has. And apparently, yes, they have like looked at a couple of areas on the property, but searched it, dug, dogs, sonar, like all these forensic stuff that they do. No, that has not been done. They have just been to a couple of areas on the property to just kind of look around to see if they saw anything obvious. Klein Investigations, their theory is that after the chase happened, that Conn had come back and that something had happened between Colt and Conn, and then Molly was harmed for being there. The other theory that comes into consideration is we talked about that uncle of his, Colby, okay? The one who had made that 911 call by accident. There's a theory that Colby actually is responsible for what happened. So maybe Conn told him where to go find them and then something happened. Maybe Colby came across them and something happened. Or maybe they, like, all of these things, remember, that we're talking about that could have happened? Like, it makes you wonder, like, if they were out there and they had these drugs to sell, had they sold them? Did they still have them? Did Conn take off with them? Did Colby go steal them? Like, all of these theories are just theories. I wonder what you guys think, because my mind is just everywhere. I do not for any ability in the world think that they ran away. It doesn't fit at all. It's been too long. They would have been found by now. I do not think that they were out in the middle of nowhere where their friends couldn't even find them and some random stranger who happens to kidnap people happens to come across them out in the middle of nowhere and takes a 21-year-old man and a 17-year-old girl and leaves no evidence behind. I don't think that they contacted anyone else because we have all their phone records and those people seem to have been cleared in an involvement. Is it a possibility? Sure, but it just doesn't seem to fit. So the only people that seem to fit is Conn. The only one who had a motive, and he lied. And that's what's so crazy, because if they had just gotten into a police chase and then they all bailed out, I know Conn's going to get in trouble for the police chase, but like, you could at least tell her mom. And he wouldn't. He refused to share that information with them. And it just doesn't seem to fit. Paula said that Paula is Molly's aunt. And she actually runs the Facebook group that I linked below, Operation Find Molly Miller. And she said that when she went to Conn, that he had tears in his eyes about Molly. Like, he cared about her. So it made you think either he has severe remorse that he harmed her, or he has severe guilt because he knows who harmed her. They do not believe that the Sheriff Joe Russell, despite the fact that he's a despicable human being in his operation of his police department, like, how could you do this? How could you put all these people at risk? How could you let go on what happened in your home involving minors, involving women? The things that were brought against him are just ridiculous. But they do not think that he actually harmed them. Like, it doesn't seem to fit that he harmed them, but they think he knows. There's no reason why he would be so zip-lipped. I mean, this is missing people. And to not help in this investigation, to block the investigation, to hinder it, to allow Conn to just be involved. Like, number one, if nothing else, these are your nephew's friends. Like, find them. And number two, you know what kind of person your nephew is, or your cousin. I'm sorry. He's referred to him as his uncle a lot, and I think that's just because of age, but that is actually his cousin. So what do you guys think? Like, why would Molly run off? She wouldn't. But why would they harm Molly? And I only think that she must have witnessed something happening out there. Either that, or maybe Conn, there was someone else in the car. Maybe Conn had someone else with them, somebody else who was involved in this drug deal, or he was meeting someone. I mean, maybe not meeting someone out there, but maybe that person harmed them and Conn knows. Because why did Conn say that that gun was going to clear him? In regards to the gun and the machete, it has been tested. Forensically, we don't know anything from the FBI to say that it was linked to anything as far as we know. We always get to the end of the video and I always have this moment where I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, did I say it all? Did I get it all out there? But what is most important is that you guys hear their story, that they matter, that this is not who they were, that just because they were involved in drugs, that doesn't mean that's like their life is still valuable. They had potential to offer to the world that they didn't get to do, and their family misses them. Colt's son is being raised without his dad, and that's not fair. And it's not just that you lost a parent, you don't know where your parent's at. Like, that little boy has to forever know, like, where's my dad? Yeah, I really can't answer that question for you because I genuinely don't know. And I hate that for them. And Molly's family, to lose your 17-year-old daughter and never know where she's at, it's heartbreaking, and they need justice. They need answers. If you know anything in this area, I'm going to link down the police department. So you have the Wilson City Police Department is involved, the Carter County Sheriff's Department is involved, and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation is involved. So they're all handling the case. They're all involved. All of their phone numbers are linked down below. Share their story, especially if you're in the Oklahoma area, because somebody needs to come forward. We need to put more pressure on them. So far, True Crime Daily covered this. Oxygen Network did a series. The Unfound Podcast is like 3.5 hours long. I listened and finished that this morning. I have that link for you guys down below. But other than that, the only other YouTuber who's covered it is Rachel Shannon, and she just did it a couple of months ago. So we need to get more pressure out there so bigger networks can pick this up, to get some pressure, to get some answers. Molly and Colt's family deserve that. So again, I will link everything for you guys down below. Thank you so much for being here with me. I love doing these videos for you guys. I'm putting more together. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being patient with me. I'm not following my regular weekly schedule. Whatever. I'm doing these videos for you guys, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much. I say this at the end of every one of my videos. So hug your babies and hug your loves. Life is literally precious. Enjoy every minute of every day. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.